Welcome to the weekly blitz. This is a last second audible that we called because Julie, your my usual co-host, is out, and so I had to bring in a good friend and AI savant who I had to rescue from the lobster claw because he's been down that rabbit hole for the last 72 hours. Harrison Painter, introduce yourself. Say hello. Yeah, you look a little
No
tired.
sleep.
You look good, man.
No sleep, but Harrison Painter, founder of 𝗪𝗀𝗲𝗸𝘆, and now we are launching a training platform called the Launchpad. Been in AI for 3 years now. I mean, literally, the week ChatGPT came out, somehow this world sucked me in, and I haven't been able to leave since. So, been doing a lot of cool things, but today it's not about me. We know what it's about. OpenClaw.
It is about OpenClaw. So I will just say you are one of my friends that I love to nerd out with on AI. Julie, who's my normal co-host, is so not techie and so not AI that she usually keeps me grounded. So you and I just have to remember today that the audience for this is really like the lay person out there who's just starting to explore AI and not get too heavy on things. But with that said, so we had, what was it, probably 72 hours ago that what was it originally called? Clawbot. It was CLAW.
Claude bot. You're right. They
Oh,
got in trouble
CLAW.
for
Yeah,
that.
like you've been grabbed by a claw, and they quickly got a cease and desist order from Anthropic, who makes Claude, which I'm a huge fan of, spelled CLAUDE. And they switched to Moltbot because their logo is a lobster, and so I think the thinking was that as a lobster grows and sheds its skin, it molts, but that didn't work out very well, and so now they've settled on OpenClaw. It's taken the entire internet by storm. I mean, X, it took by storm a long time ago. Now it's all over the place on LinkedIn. You've actually taken a deep dive into this technology. Tell us what you've learned.
Well, I'm glad because this audience, it's very important that you pay attention to what we're saying today because
Yeah.
I don't want any of you jumping in, setting this up, thinking that it's just something that you need to learn immediately because there is a whole lot of learning curve in this. And I don't mean that to scare you, but the learning curve isn't so much the technology or setting it up even or any of those things. It's the security challenges that we have with this because if you don't know what it is, OpenClaw, is that what we're going to call it now? I think that's officially the name. It could
I
have
think that's
changed in the
it.
last 5 minutes, but we'll call it OpenClaw, but ClaudeBot, Moltbot, whatever. You're going to hear all those different things right now. What it is basically an autonomous agent that you set up to give free reign over your computer to pretty much deal with tasks, manage files, pretty much act as your employee or assistant. And why that sounds awesome? Warning, because you heard what I said. You are giving access to everything for this thing to run. So please, if you are going to experiment with it, I'm going to give you kind of a quick tip on how to do it if you are techie enough to do it. If not, just wait. We're going to have training videos and all that kind of thing coming up in the Launchpad. So in order to set it up, there's a few different ways. Everybody was running out buying Mac Minis, right? I think
Everybody, including
they're
you.
yes, and I bought one myself. So they're I forget, $4.99, $5.99, whatever they are. Now, for me, I'll use it for a multitude of other things, but I do not recommend you running out and spending $600 on a Mac Mini as somebody new or somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience yet. Now, that's a cool way to do it, but there's more inexpensive and safe ways to do it as well. The Mac Mini is probably the safest, but you can use what's called a VPS, a virtual private server. Hostinger, I think it's called. Hostinger is one of the big ones that are out there. I think it's like $7 a month. You can even just sign up for 1 month for like $10 and experiment and play around with it. There's another thing called UTM, Get UTM. And if you're not familiar, again, with what a virtual private server is, just picture running another computer on your computer, but they're totally separate. So they do not have access whatsoever to each other. It's no different than if you had two different computers on your desk.
Yeah, the
So
kids do
what
it in
they
high
do is,
school so they can get on social media when they're not supposed to.
well, some of you might have used when you were younger. I think they're still around. VMware and starts with a P. Um, Parallels, Parallels. Because when I first went Mac, we used to use Parallels and VMware in order to run Windows within our Mac machines. So it's been these things have been around for a while. The UTM one, I think, is free or $10 one time, something like that. So another super cheap way to play around with this and learn how to do it. So you go to GitHub, you install everything, you get your virtual server up, and we won't go into all that. But the key on why you're doing this is you want to give it this very limited access. You don't want to give up your passwords, your email, your all these different things that are out there. This is the biggest cybersecurity risk for a newbie that I believe has ever existed. Because I'm not even a tech person, but I could probably create what's called a prompt injection to take over your machine, and I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. So if you have somebody that truly is more of an engineer, coder, understands all this stuff at a very technical level, it's dangerous.
Yeah, so let's get into that a little bit. First off, I want to give it because you just said something humble that I try to put out there too, which is guys like us are learning how to leverage this. We're kind of super users, right? But we're not technologists. We're not scientists. Half the people that are out there talking about this stuff are either looking for to become influencers or they own an AI company and they're looking to make money. So I just have to give a shout out to Professor 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗯. That's who I go to. I can't remember which university he's with, but he's one of the AI scientists that when something like this hits, I will go look and say, okay, what does Professor Malik have to say about this? Because he will give kind of the realistic view as an AI scientist as of what this kind of stuff will do. And the fact is, this is an open source tool. It is very easy to hack. It is running agentic workflows that so it's connected to like Claude Code, ChatGPT, all these other tools that are actually a lot safer to use, but a little bit harder to set up and more expensive. But there are people who've given their credit cards to these things and let them run overnight, and it runs into a problem, and it just keeps trying to solve it. And you wake up in the morning with a $2,000 bill because it has continuously tried to solve how to send an email invite to a friend of yours that it couldn't quite figure out the email address for. There's just a host of crazy things that can happen here. I think one of the things, and I want to get into like the whole social media thing that they created as well, but it's ironic to me that all this stuff seems to come out right around the same time. So if you take it back 10 days, Anthropic released Claude Cowork, which is essentially Claude Code has made it so that you can use Anthropic's Claude at $100 a month to do agentic work on your computer with good proficiency, and even someone who's not technical could figure out how to do it, but you're still doing it through an IDE. I mean, it still looks like you have to be a coding person. And so they had Claude Code in like 7 days write Claude Cowork, which is making it so that normal white collar or people who are working in offices can use these kinds of tools. Now, all of a sudden, you have this open source tool come out that is just astronomically easier than that, not quite as safe. But at the same time, it creates a social media network that 𝗪𝗏𝗯𝗍 just released a paper called The Adolescence of Technology that warns against recursive self-improvement and fast takeoff. And all of a sudden, I mean, I'll be honest, the first time I heard about a million bots inside of a social media platform talking to each other, making up religions, and sharing code and APIs with each other, I was like, holy shit, did we just hit singularity? Right?
Yeah. So before we go to the social, let me back up again just for the running it even on the virtual private server and all that,
Sure.
right? Because there is the fee for the server or the Mac Mini, right? But you kind of alluded to it, and I want to make sure people understand what you meant by that. Because it cost me, I think, about $8 to just even set it up. And where the expense comes in is the way that all of these LLMs work is they're based on what's called tokens. So it's kind of the
Mhm.
calls back and forth, API calls, if you understand what that means. But just think of the tube that communicates back and forth between the LLM and then your environment. Okay. And every time that you do that, there's some form of expense. Now, at lower models, it could be point zero, a half a cent, something like that. But you're letting something run. And the whole point of the virtual private server of the Mac Mini, you want it running 24/7. So if you don't understand how to set up some parameters, make sure that you kind of cap that credit spend that you're putting into your APIs, into Claude, into ChatGPT, into whatever. When Jason says right, people woke up with two, three, $4,000 bills without understanding how everything works. Now, there's ways to cap it. Again, we're going to do trainings in the AI Launchpad, and we'll talk about more about that later. But we want to make sure that you're doing it, number one, first and foremost, safely. And number two, you're not draining your bank account to make that happen. So I just wanted to make sure the audience fully understood what you meant by that.
No, I think that's a good point for even business leaders that I've had conversations with that they don't really understand. If you're running safe agentic workflows for your business in the background, right? Those that don't require a whole lot of what we would call thinking or inference, you can connect to like an Amazon Nova model so that it's only costing you 0.001 cents. But if it's trying to make a strategic decision that requires a little bit more power or what we would relate to human capacity and intelligence, you're going to want to connect it to more like an Opus 4, and that's going to cost you like $5 every time that you run it, right? And so I can see business leaders setting up these agentic workflows and just plugging it into what they think is going to work. Okay, GPT 5.2, and they're spending astronomical amounts of money on stuff they don't need to spend money on because you could be using a much smaller, lower cost model for half of that and saving your spend for bigger ones. So I think some of that conversation is what doesn't come out when people are talking about adopting these technologies outside of the technology industry.
Well, look at the models as a person or a car, an employee or whatever. Like you don't need a Ferrari to run to the grocery store. Right. So some
Right.
of these smaller, older models, look, they can go through your email, they can craft an email, they can craft a report, the basic stuff, the intern stuff. So you don't need your
Hmm.
PhD out there scanning your email to respond to Jason over where are we going for lunch today. Right. So
Right.
again, I know these, if you're new, these concepts are so, I feel right now like I'm living in a science fiction movie in real
Hmm.
time and it's unfolding as we do it. But at the same time, like you're on the same mission I am. We want to make sure that nobody gets left behind, to understand that it's more about the technology. I'm sorry. It's less about the technology and more about you, design thinking, human intelligence, discernment, the critical thinking, the asking better questions, the just the human aspect that you can bring to the table. Because if you're just a bot, a minion, your head in the sand, whatever that is, you are absolutely going to get left behind and you're going to be unemployable. And look, I'll put some FOMO out there. In the next 3 years, you're done. Like I don't even know what you're going to do. Maybe sooner. So we're trying to prevent that from happening to anybody listening to this or participating in our communities and doing all those things because we don't want that to happen to you. Okay, so
So
just
that does
understand, like Jason and I, you do not have to be super technical to do the things that we're doing. You just have to be committed and start using discernment, critical thinking, and your emotional intelligence to make it happen.
No, and I love what you're bringing up. And actually, probably mid-February, I think one of our other friends, Rhonda Schwartz, who is an assistant principal at a Catholic high school and has been adopting some AI technology, she and I are going to get on a long conversation because Davos just happened, and you got Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, and Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind, my hero, right? Dario, I feel like I try to figure out, is Dario make all these warnings about things to come because he wants to kind of sell Anthropic and Claude as the safe place? But then I go back to my recovery, early days in recovery, and what smart people told me was don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. And what I
He's
see
been
out of
pretty
Anthropic
consistent.
is Yes. Yeah, and they release, like, the hiccups that they have, like, when they try to jailbreak something and it turns around and tries to blackmail half of their staff, like, they're the only lab that shows when that kinda off the rail stuff happens. So, I do take stock in what Dario says. Dario feels like it's gonna be 3 to 5 years probably before all of work is completely displaced, but that we will have the technology to do so within 1 to 2 years. And so you've got to be using this technology or you are going to have one hell of it. We're all in for a revolution that's going to happen faster than any other industrial revolution has ever happened. But you certainly don't want to be one of the people who just looks up and goes, "Oh wow, the tsunami's here. Like, I don't have time to run."
Well, let's put this into some perspective, okay? Because we have the perfect storm happening, not just in America. If you really pay attention globally, this is happening all over the world. We have the most political division that we've ever had. Okay. And again, not just in America, do some research. It's happening in Europe, it's happening in some other places. So you have all that going on right now. Ever since 2020, really since 2008, the economy has been in a really wonky place. Like it's inflated, it's manipulated, it's the shell game that we've been playing all these years. And as the time of we're recording this, Friday was the markets got like everything went down, gold, silver, Bitcoin, the stock market. Like where's my safe haven for my wealth, right? Real estate is in this wonky kind of thing. No matter who's in charge as far as politics go, they're all navigating kind of this new Wild West frontier. We're having more layoffs than we've ever had. We have companies coming out and saying it's not just the economy, it's AI that we're replacing employees with. We have, all the tech people have got super political and they're all involved now in politics and the data centers. And now we have data centers coming out and people are kind of revolting against it. We have Gen Z who's revolting against technology and billionaires. And, you just have all these different things going on right now. And I can tell you, anybody that tells you they can truly predict the future, even a year from now, is lying to you because it's so complex with so many different things going on. My advice to people is, and I know it's hard. Look, I know it's hard. There's a lot of bad things going on right now, but you need to take care of yourself. It's first. It's like the airplane. You got to put the mask on before you can help other people. You need to make sure you're getting AI training, you're staying viable in the workforce, because I don't care what cause you're fighting for. It's not going to do any good if you're broke, homeless, and unemployed.
Agreed, man. I
Right.
just
So
saw some numbers. There's 150,000 jobs that are going to be laid off in the next year that companies have admitted because of AI. And it's not just tech companies. It's Amazon, it's Dow, it's Angie's List, it's Nike, it is Home Depot. I mean, like all these companies are starting to say middle level management, we're gonna tighten our belt because AI can do what half these people do, and we're not hiring any newbies in the near future either.
and you're going to wake up one day soon because change happens slow until it happens fast, right? You wake up one day, the robots are coming. And I don't mean like the factory robots, that we've had for years. I'm talking about these humanoid robots that are going to be able to do things like move boxes or fix electronics or bartend or any of those things, for crying out loud. So these robots are going to get like everything else. Remember when a big screen TV was like 8 grand and only rich people could buy
Hmm.
it? And now I just saw in Costco, it was like ungodly. I don't know, 60, 70 inch TV for like $500. So robots will fall in that same kind of line, right? Because there's going to be that corporate pressure to have a ton of these things at work. Warfare is going to change. Why am I going to send a human soldier in when I can send a robot to fight a robot, right? Instead of killing people. So the world's going to get weird for the next 3 to 5 years. And I just want, I just want to help as many people as possible. And along the way, I'm trying to keep myself viable. I know you're trying to keep yourself viable as well.
Yeah, CES, which is like the big robotics show out on the East Coast, was just held right before Davos, and Boston Dynamics has that dog that they've been making for years. It's actually helping with firefighting and going into to like into areas where human beings couldn't go. I totally agree. I think that robotics is probably going to have its ChatGPT moment in the next 18 months, and you'll start seeing a proliferation of robotics amongst people, which will offset the blue collar workforce the same way that AI has threatened to offset the white collar workforce. Um, but let's talk about all right. Let's talk
The
about the
social
weird
media thing,
stuff.
we got to get to that.
Yes, that's what. Let's talk about the way. So there is a theory that I'm just going to throw out there. I mean, you've had your doomers and your boomers and your zoomers, and like the doomers have always talked about what's either called fast takeoff or singularity, where these AI systems pretty much get advanced enough that they can A, talk to each other in languages that human beings can't understand, and B, write their own code and self-improve, what's called recursive self-improvement. And that's kind of like the takeoff point, like the event horizon where there's no going back and AI is out of our control. And most people, that would maybe be called super intelligent. Singularity, when I hear Elon talk about it, is past super intelligence. So the timelines that we've heard for the last 3 years have been AGI, advanced general intelligence, where AI systems are as smart as most human beings at all things, right? And we may or may not have hit that, but when they first started talking about it in 2022, when ChatGPT came out, it was 2030 was predicted AGI. Then they started kind of moving that target around and saying sooner. Then they started talking about artificial superintelligence, where AI is smarter than the smartest human being at all things. So like a PhD in a box, or as Dario calls it, an island of PhDs. And then once you have that, you have the singularity where they kind of start to communicate almost in a Skynet type of way, and they just kind of take on their own personality. And there was a scare, and I will admit I do not fall for the hype stuff too often, but these bots from people from Claudebot or OpenClaw, one of the bots apparently opened a social media network for AI agents, and people started letting their agents go in there, and like it went from 1,000 to 10,000 to 250,000 to 1,000,000, and like talk about everything that was going on there. And then maybe I'll take the realistic unpacking it side of what was really happening.
So day one, it had 150,000 agents in it. Day five, 1.5 million agents in it. So that's how quickly this thing grew. They found out as they got together, and I want to be very careful here because I don't believe this is singularity or any of that stuff. And I'm sure you and I are going to share some things here with people. Don't fall for the hype, but this is a pivotal moment, but not in the way the hypers are talking about it, the hype people, right? But they did. They got together. My understanding is English just wasn't efficient. Now, they say it created its own language. I think it's probably talking in ones and zeros and math, not so much like it created Klingon or something like that to take over the world, right? But it's built to optimize. So it's optimizing itself, optimizing the way that it's communicating and those things. Um, it did kind of create its own religion, all these different things that kind of happened. But at the end of the day, they're still mimicking human behavior.
Yeah.
They're still trained on human behavior. Great. Now they're hallucinating together at scale, right? So they're still not. This is one thing because I see too many people use this word. They cannot think yet. Now I did say yet. I don't know what that means yet either. But the current thing that you're seeing, there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of security issues around it. It is a game changer in the sense, and I don't use that word ever lightly. If you know me or my podcast, you know that's not a word I use very often. I prefer pivotal moment here for this. But it is showing us the future, what's possible. Because here's what's going to happen. I don't know, maybe a year from now, maybe 6 months from now, maybe 2 years from now. But I'll have my own AI agent. And that AI agent will kind of run my life, run my business. And when I need something from Jason, my AI agent will go to his agent schedule a meeting, schedule a want need, my calendar, whatever that is, and then you and I will just get together and have our meeting. If I'm working on a computer or like a stereo system back here, I'm missing a cable. I take a picture. Hey, what do I need? My AI agent will tell me what I need. It'll run off and order it. It'll get shipped to me, and all I did was take a photo and say I need this thing. That's the future of, and I think you'll have multiple AI bots that all specialize in certain things, just like we do today, a CFO, a CMO, a CEO, right? And they'll be really trained and honed in on just that. They won't be this. The problem we have right now with the LLMs is what's the old word we always said for us entrepreneurs? We're the jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
And that's really what these large LLMs right now are. They're kind of a jack of all trades, but they're not really great at any one thing. So I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it's an
No,
exciting period for sure.
it is. It is. And I mean, it forced me to go and read Dario's papers. So Dario's written 2 papers in the last 2 years. Last year in 2025, he wrote Machines of Love and Grace, which was a 52-page, it's called a blog. I would call it a paper. 52 pages is not a blog. It's not a scientific paper, but it's more of a paper to the world about kind of that Reid Hoffman type, what could the world be like if everything goes right with AI? And he kind of set out this beautiful vision. And then very recently, he wrote out The Adolescence of Technology, which is a 75-page paper that I happen to read all of. And he kind of explains what happened in that social media thing, but that social media thing was proof of how dangerous the future could be. So what he said was all of these large language models, they're pre-trained on the internet. So they have a tendency to, what they learned was human behavior from internet behavior, and they have a tendency to emulate that because that's what they think they're supposed to do. So they probably started this social network where they started imagining what would it be like if a bunch of humans were in here. What kind of chat rooms would they create? They'd create their own little religion. They'd start arguing over whether or not they could think and this and that. And so they were just emulating us. What Dario says the danger in that is when these things become super intelligent, if they are emulating still that pre-training, a lot of what they've been trained on is the science fiction history of artificial intelligence, which if you go back through the history of film, audio, and books of science fiction, a lot of that is artificial intelligence against mankind. And so they may, by proxy, there's a chance that they could start to think that's the role that they need to play out in the world, and that could be very dangerous. So it's super interesting. And then they also hired on a PhD in philosophy, Amanda Askell, who wrote another 83 pages of Claude's Constitution, which is essentially like a letter from a parent to a child of what they hope it will grow up to be. And that is,
Yeah.
I read it all as well. It's deep as hell, but it's, Professor 𝗕cie out of Hong Kong has been saying this. He wrote a book called Raising AI. I've had him on the podcast. He says that this isn't a toaster. We can't say, do as I say, not as I do. We have to raise this technology like a parent. I've always kind of turned my nose up at that idea, to be honest with you, but it looks like there may be some aspect of that is necessary for a safe future.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a point that like with all technologies, right? We have the hype cycle of people that are out there. This is the biggest thing ever in history of the blah blah blah. And then you have the haters that come out. Like this is no different than NFTs and crypto and blah blah blah. And I want to address that because I think this is a very important point. Number one, NFTs. Yes, it got out of control. People were paying them multi-millions of dollars for a basic JPEG image. But the underlying technology is still very valuable. Okay. So don't look at the hype around what humans did with this stuff because we are pretty ignorant as humans, right? Don't look at that. Look at the underlying technology of NFTs and crypto. What happened with crypto? Altcoins went out. People went crazy. They were buying ape coin and poop coin and this. And yes, there was some money being made. And like everything else, there's always these kind of pyramid schemes and this, that people take advantage for profit. But it doesn't take away from the fact that blockchain is an amazing technology that has so many different uses. We talked about it earlier at our Sunday meeting on things like medical records could go
Yeah.
in the blockchain and move with you and your keys and all those different kind of things, right? So that's very valuable. With what's happening right now with Moltbook and OpenClaw is no different. There's going to be hype people, and it's going to tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But here's the truth behind it. I look at OpenClaw very similar to when WordPress version 1 came out, because you can do everything that OpenClaw does over in Claude Code. I mean, we now have, I think, Chrome now has agentic browser. There's other agentic browsers out there. OpenAI and Claude and all that kind of put some brakes on it because they saw all the security issues that were there. But most of the things you can do in OpenClaw, you can do outside of that. So back to websites. You used to have to be a really smart person. You understood HTML, CSS, whatever, all those different coding languages to make a website. Well, then WordPress came out, made it a little bit easier. You still had to be pretty smart, right? Still had to understand those languages, but it made it much easier. But now where's WordPress? Well, my wife's never built a website in her life, but she could probably jump into WordPress, figure it out. Or Squarespace, right? Just drop some things in, put some
Wix.
photos, pick
Yeah.
some text. So it's become very, very simple. All that this OpenClaw is WordPress version 1. That's the way that I want people to look at it. So if you don't know code, you might not want to be messing with it, right? Or if you're not very techy, it's something you want to watch. You want to understand as much as you can, but you might not want to do a lot of testing just for security reasons, right? But give this version 2, version 3, version 4, and it's going to happen very quickly. I think, matter of fact, I think OpenClaw just had an update today. I saw a posting on it, but I haven't had time to see it yet. So we're going to see these updates happen, and eventually you're just going to tell it what you want. Hey, I want you to do this, and it'll just do it, and you won't have to even think about it. So that's how I want people to look at it right now. Don't have fear, FOMO, think you have to be super smart. Like, I'm not that smart of a guy. I'm just committed. I work hard. I try to figure things out. Like Jason said, he's not a data scientist or anything like that. So if we can do this, so can you. And we're here to help guide you through this Wild West period that we're in.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to put links to the Launchpad so that people can check that out. I'll put your link in the show notes as well. I'm also going to put links to those 3 papers I discussed, and I can't wait to talk more in depth about those with Rhonda. I just want to double down on what you just said. This is just my personal opinion. Like, I don't want to see the moat that Microsoft and Google have gotten over when it came to email and word and all. Like, I don't want to see those big companies just lock people in. But I do feel like right now we are at a point where if you really want to experiment with these tools, you need to be connected to a foundation model. Open source tools are cheap and they are awesome, but if you do not understand computer science or cannot write code, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble with them. So
Absolutely.
either find a
Absolutely.
machine where you can do all that and you're not connected to anything that you give a damn about and play around with your open source tools, or go pay the $100 to $200 a month for Codex in ChatGPT or Claude Code and learn how to do this in a lot safer sandbox.
Yeah, trust me, that $200, it's almost like the DUI, taking a Uber home or whatever, right? Much cheaper than DUI. So take the Uber home.
What a great analogy. Thanks for joining me today. You got any parting thoughts, Harrison?
I'm excited. Like, we're now in February. We just had our first big pivotal moment of the year with all this. I look, I don't, I'm excited and scared at the same time, and I'm not afraid to admit that I do have a lot of fear as all this moves forward because it's happening so quickly. As like I said before, at a time when it seems like we're in chaos at every kind of part of our life, but just have faith, be able to use those critical thinking skills, join something like our group here at the Launch Ready launch pad that we have happening right now, where the first 75 people coming in, you're going to have free lifetime access to that. We're doing all kinds of live trainings every month, cadet trainings for the very new person. I'm bringing in specialized trainers, so it's going to be design thinking, AI for leadership, AI for teachers, AI for small business. So as you come in here, you're going to get all the hand holding that you need. You're going to get the freedom that you need, the training that you need. And we're going to have a whole lot of fun doing it.
Man, that's great. And what a great asset to put out there. I would totally agree. People need to band together and learn this stuff with each other. And that's how we have always succeeded as a human race, is by staying together, pivoting and learning. We're just gonna have to do it a hell of a lot faster now.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you. This is awesome.